put up some screens for you all to look at, and we're going to take a little tour of this room. We're going to start our tour right here, 2 rows up, where it says Flight Director. During a mission, the Flight Director is in total control and totally responsible for the mission. First priority, the safety of the crew on board. Second priority, the safety and integrity of the spacecraft. And finally, complete all of the mission objectives. In order to do that, all of the controllers on the floor report to flight, as well as the hundreds of controllers who are in support rooms. They report to the flight as well. The crew on board the spacecraft, that's the boss. Now, seated to the right of flight, we have CAPCOM. CAPCOM is an acronym for Capsule Communications. And this is a terminology that goes all the way back to the very beginning of America's manned spaceflight program. You see, during a mission, there's only one person in mission control who will be in communication verbally with the crew on board, CAPCOM. That's why CAPCOM is seated to the right of the flight director. And it's also why 100% of the time in this room, you will find an astronaut or two sitting at that console. Because we learned a long time ago, having astronauts talk with fellow astronauts on mission just expedites communication. It's that simple. Now, in front of CAPCOM, the next row up, there's a panel that says Flight Activities. The Flight Activities Officer is what he's known as in this room for shuttle personnel. In the space station control room, that gentleman right there, he's known as the Ops Planning Officer. They're basically doing the same thing, and I'll explain. Look at the very center screen. This is what we call an orbital flight map or a tracking map. Now, this map tells me a lot, but what I want you to concentrate on is it shows the current position of the International Space Station is right over the Atlantic Ocean. It's right there. It's that icon you see with the white circle around it. Now, as you watch it, it's going to flicker. And that's a motion indicator. We're on the dark side, or the nighttime side of the Earth, and that's why I can't show you pictures, because you just have pitch black. But anyway, that is misleading. It doesn't do justice as to what's going on up there. You see, that space station, just like any other spacecraft that's in orbit around the Earth, in order to maintain that orbit, she's traveling at a speed of 17,500 miles an hour. That's 5 miles every second. 1001, we just went 5 miles. Now, if you're a crew member on board that spacecraft orbiting the Earth at that speed, you will be experiencing 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets every 24 hours. And you will be passing over the international date line 16 times a day, which means you're traveling from Saturday over here to Sunday over here. When you get to Australia, back to Saturday, here comes Sunday again. Well, this could get a little confusing. Not to worry. You see, all manned missions into space, regardless of the country of origin, we fly on a time called GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. The prime meridian in England is the basis for our clock in space. Now, with that as our clock in space, every crew member on a mission will have a daily activity schedule. Things they've got to get done that day. And in order that we make sure they get those things done, every crewman's schedule, every 24 hours, is broken down into 5-minute increments. We will tell them when to wake up, when they should be doing some maintenance work or doing some experimental work, when they should be preparing for an EVA, a space log. Perhaps it's time to eat. It's time to get some exercise. We even tell them when it's time to get some rest. Now, the crew was recently told to go into sleep mode. They will be given a wake-up call in 7 hours and 54 minutes and counting. Now, in this room, for shuttle personnel, it'll be FAO's job. In the station room, the Ops Planning Officer's job, to make sure those schedules are maintained. Now, let's think about that for a minute, shall we? Let's say we got maximum crew up on the space station of 6. We send a shuttle up and dock it to that space station. It's got a crew of 7. That's 13 people. And everybody's schedule is broken down into 5-minute increments. You do the math. Flight activities and ops planning are kept rather busy. There's a little inside joke I'm going to tell you about. We have a nickname for the flight activities officer. Mom. Think about it. Look over here on the wall to the left. Up on that wall, you're going to find a collection of what we call mission patches. There are currently 59 patches on this wall, and they represent 59 missions accomplished, controlled by just this room alone. Every one of our control rooms has their own collection of patches for the missions they've been responsible for. As you go out and look in the blue room, you'll see what I'm talking about. Now our next shuttle mission is going to launch on February the 7th at 3:48 in the morning. STS-130, the Endeavour. 2.5 weeks ago, that shuttle was rolled out of the assembly building and placed on the launch pad in Florida. And on that day, mission patch STS-130 was put right here on what we call the on-mission wall. Now the reason I know it was put there that day is because I was given the honor of placing the patch on the wall. I told you there were 60 missions accomplished or controlled in this room. The 60th mission patch is part of this cluster up here in the corner. Every active control room has those patches in a place of prominence. That's a place of honor, and to be honest with you, they are there to remind us how critical things can get here. You see, those mission patches belong to the Apollo 1, the Shuttle Mission 51L, which you know as the Challenger, Shuttle Mission 107, which you know as the Columbia. While being controlled from this complex, and in the case of the Columbia, we're controlling it from this very room, we lost all personnel on those missions. These were our friends, our colleagues, and our neighbors. We know they're gone. We still consider them to be on mission. Their mission now is to remind us every time we do fire those rockets in Florida that we remember the words of a flight director by the name of Gene Kranz, who in 1970 was talking to a room full of young flight controllers when he said, "Gentlemen, in our profession, failure just cannot be an option. The cost of failure comes at too high a price." And unfortunately, on February the 1st of 2003, we had to pay that price again. In the north side of this building, there's a room called MOCR 2, Mission Operations Control Room 2. I have spent a lot of hours, might as well say days, in that room over the years. It's where we controlled the Apollo lunar missions. And on July the 20th of 1969, those of us in that room heard some words come in from Neil Armstrong as he and Buzz Aldrin set down on the moon for the first time. "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." In December of 1972, as Gene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt left the moon for the last time as part of Apollo 17, we also heard from them. "Houston, we have ignition." You see, folks, the very first word ever said from another world was Houston. And to this date, the last word said on the moon, Houston. This is Houston, the home of the Manned Space Flight Center, the home of Mission Control. On behalf of NASA, Johnson Space Center, and Space Center Houston, I want to thank you all for coming to visit us here today. And now let's return to the moon and on to Mars. Bye-bye.